did we have this Gene Cernan thing squared away now?
Yeah, we're all good.
Last man to walk on the moon.
Yeah, he died.
Rest in peace, Gene Cernan.
But
Right.
there are 6 others who are alive who have walked on the moon.
I read a
Buzz.
statement, a part of a statement from Buzz Aldrin on the passing of Gene Cernan. Yeah.
Great. So
Okay, so we got that
it's
squared
all
away.
good.
I don't wanna-
No worries.
All
Don't
right.
let it ruin your day.
Oh, I don't want to mischaracterize the legacy of a American hero. So. All right, transitioning to the hallowed halls of academia. Not so hallowed anymore. We are pleased to be joined by our friend Peter Wood. He is president of the National Association of Scholars, and they recently released a report on social justice activism on campuses that those of you sending your snowflakes to college or who soon will be may want to take judicial notice of. Peter Wood, thanks so much for joining us again. Appreciate it.
Great to be back.
So in this report, you explain, NAS explains the new civics, quote unquote, that is being inculcated into our best and brightest on college campuses. Explain what the new civics is.
The new civics is replacing teaching about how American government works and why we should care with social and political activism. And it does that largely through what's called service learning or civic engagement, which takes college students from the moment they arrive on campus and turns them into unpaid labor for leftist causes. They're told that that's learning how to make a democracy run. What it's really doing is teaching them how to be community activists, how to nurture grievances, how to bring other people into protests, how to occupy offices, and that kind of stuff.
So, for example, let me ask if this would be an example of what you're describing and reporting upon. January 18th, some 25 colleges and universities have answered a call by professors at UCLA to use their regular class time to, quote, teach, organize, and resist, unquote, what they view as the discriminatory political agenda of President-elect Donald Trump, hashtag J18. Would that be an example of what you're describing?
That's exactly what we're talking about. This is using public resources at public universities to turn students into activists for the Democratic Party and to protest and shut down anything that the party leaders don't like. It's all being presented as though it's education, but it's pure partisan politics masquerading as education, and it's everywhere.
Do you think that this will end anytime soon, though? Is this our new reality, that kids are going to be coddled even when they leave the nest and go off to college?
Well, people should know that this is out there. I don't think it's news anymore that colleges are hotbeds of leftist activism, but what we've done in the report is show how this has been institutionalized, that there are now budget lines that support this activity. It's become the thing usually run out of the dean of students' office, but there are various arrangements for it, and parents should know what they're paying for. They're basically making a donation to a political party when they pay that tuition bill.
Yeah, that's certainly the case, and particularly parents of young men. Several universities, a report from campusreform.org, like University of Oregon,
Yeah, I see the picture you're holding up, Dan.
creating safe spaces to combat toxic masculinity. Is there any other kind, really? The learning outcomes include examining the histories and legacies of Eurocentric masculinities and understanding how they influence and continue to shape modern global masculinities. Boy, I wish I was a duck so I could audit that class. But toxic masculinities, the targeting of men and white men in particular on college campuses.
Well, every movement needs an enemy, and the one that has been conjured up as most useful for the new civics is the idea of white men as the sort of source of every form of oppression and evil that the world has ever seen, and the toxic masculinity meme of the moment is certainly part of that.
You know, it's a fascinating thing because with all of this focus on white men, and we talked about this yesterday, these courses at UW-Madison of witnessing whiteness. The faculty at American colleges, universities, 78% white, 6% black, 4% Latino. So aren't we really witnessing whiteness if we turned our gaze to the faculty rather than the student body?
Well, I suppose that's true. On the other hand, I don't think we really need to worry about the race, the color, the sex or gender of faculty members or anybody else. Education should be about treating individuals as individuals. Yeah.
Well, what about just presenting the information and not, putting in your own personal beliefs?
Well, my organization stands for a university that is neutral, that treats people fairly, and that doesn't allow the classroom to be a pulpit for preaching political propaganda. So your personal beliefs are something that you should enjoy personally and in private, not as something that you stick down the throats of your students.
Right, and no, I totally agree with that, and agree with what you said about essentially like a colorblind posture towards the academicians. But I'm just saying, in terms of the hypocrisy of it all, these white men walking around campus teaching in departments, in various departments, universities across the country.
Rapists, Dan.
I mean,
all men are rapists.
It's just, I mean, especially those that are tenured, they don't even have fear of professional repercussion, really, and they won't stand up to this nonsense. I mean, all the professors I had at Northwestern, most of whom were far left, they just walk around abiding this idea that they're part of the toxic masculinity or that is the source of all of Western civilization's ills.
Generally, they ignore it. There's a small number of crazy faculty members teaching the toxic masculinity courses, but the left takes a view of no enemies on the left, so they just turn a blind eye to this crazy nonsense and go on teaching what they want to teach. It's you leave me alone, I'll leave you alone attitude. The people who should be concerned about the overall shape of education, that is, if you're a professor, it's not just your course that matters, but the whole education of the student. Those people have checked out. They're not generally engaged in resisting the nonsense. They are, unbothered by it.
I mean, as a scholar, didn't Edmund Burke say something about what happens with evil when good men do nothing? Peter Wood, president of the National Association of Scholars. This is one of the organizations people should take notice of, people should follow, because it is standing athwart all of this nonsense, as you described, Peter. I wonder if you guys do anything to help parents discern where are places to send their children for a college degree that are actually institutions that believe in academic freedom and don't engage in the new civics that you reported on.
Well, we don't keep a list of the places that we think are more wholesome, but I answer dozens of emails a week from people asking that question, and I usually respond by saying, tell me more about your son or daughter, and I'll try to my best to advise where you're going to get an education that fits. There are good places out there, and even in bad universities, there are good programs, so you have to be prepared to do some homework and understand what your child is susceptible to and what he or she's going to stand up for.
All right, Peter, expect to get an email from Amy Jacobson here after the show for seeking some advice and counsel. Peter Wood, president of National Association of Scholars, the report, Making Citizens, How American Universities Teach Civics, worth a read. Peter, thanks as always for joining us. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
And he joined us on our turnkey.pro answer line.